What the hell? Chapter 1. Where the hell am I? Maya awoke to the sound of chirping birds somewhere outside. She first opened her eyes, but could not immediately see as her sight was still blurry. She decided to give it a minute and indulge further in the silken bed covers until she was ready to acknowledge the day. It took Maya a few seconds, but she eventually remembered that she didn't own any silk covers as the sensation never lasted long after several washes. She opened her eyes and wiped away her morning tears to see her surroundings, which she did not recognize. A quick look around her indicated that she was not at her home or anywhere else she could think of. The walls, floor, and ceiling looked like they were made of slabs of black stone with silver outlines. She noticed that the bed she lay on was massive, to say the least, and could accommodate several people. This thought struck her as a frightening thought, as she honestly had no idea where she was and how she got there. Maya began to move off of the bed, and that is when she discovered the next issue that needed to be addressed. She was stark naked, and as she looked around, her clothes were nowhere in sight. She began to pull on the long black silken blanket and wrap it around her so that she could get off the bed to move about, but froze as she heard the voice speak to her. "Where are you going, my dear?" At first, the voice sounded both near and far away, commanding and soothing, booming yet oddly quiet. Maya looked around the room and saw what seemed like an outline of a woman at the doorway on the far side of the room. The woman began to move closer to Maya, but stopped halfway to her and bowed towards her after stating that her name was Victoria and she was at her service. Maya was not sure what she would do at that point, but she knew she wanted Victoria to stop bowing as it made her quite uncomfortable. "How about you stop bowing and tell me where my clothes are and where the hell am I?" Maya asked Victoria, hoping to cut through the awkwardness and get some answers. Victoria straightened up, and once Maya saw her in the light, she instantly became less brave. Victoria looked like she walked out of a scary Gothic novel, complete with a black Victorian dress. Her face was weathered and told of her long hard life, but her smile was gentle as of a grandmother smiling at her grandchildren. Her eyes, however, were what rang the alarm bells for Maya, as they were two black sunken voids that looked deprived of all life. Victoria smiled at her, which made Maya shiver as she was suddenly unsure of her safety. "Victoria? Where am I?" Maya asked softly while clutching the silken blanket closer to her body. Victoria noticed her discomfort and slowly moved closer to her while pointing to a point near her on the bed. Maya turned to see that several colorful dresses were not there a minute ago. "When you were brought in, the clothes you had on were dirty and torn, so they were thrown out. Please feel free to choose anything you want," Victoria told her. Maya drew closer to the edge of the bed and began to examine the dresses, and noticed that they were a mix of silk and cotton high-end choices. None of the dresses had labels, and just by eyeballing them all of them seemed to be in her size. Maya looked up from the bed and saw a row of shoes from sandals to high heels lined up against the nearby wall matching the dresses. "This is weird," she thought as she looked at Victoria, awaiting her to choose her outfit. At any other time, this demon would have scared the life out of her, but for some reason, Maya began to feel comforted by her presence. "Victoria? I have some questions, if that is all right," she asked while looking into Victoria's black eyes, trying to measure her reaction somehow. Victoria took Maya's hands in her own and her facial features softened as she smiled, which at last got Maya to feel at ease. The demon sat on the edge of the bed and looked back at Maya as she recounted all that she knew thus far. "I don't know much about it, but I know that you were attacked, and I know it happened because you held your ground against some primitive males that wanted to hurt you." Maya noticed the sudden hurt in Victoria's voice and instinctively placed her hand on Victoria's shoulder. Victoria met this with a smile and placed her hand on Maya's hand as she carried on. "The same person who witnessed this defended you and took down your attackers before they brought you back here to heal." As this was said, Maya remembered glimpses of that attack. She just won a huge court case against a shady real estate company that was responsible for illegally evicting people from their homes. The company was hurting after the loss of several $1,000,000, and the prideful owners were not willing to lose, let alone to a woman. The feeling of Victoria's shaking brought Maya back to the present, where she noticed something that greatly alarmed her. Victoria was triggered, but the tears she was shedding were some dark liquid as best she could tell. As freaked out as she was, her instinct kicked in and she wrapped her hands around the demon and hugged her from behind. "You will be all right," she said as she turned to face Victoria and gently placed a hand on her face. By doing this, Maya realized that Victoria's skin was rather cold, but the black tears she saw Victoria shed already told her that she was clearly outside normal right now. "Thank you, child," the demon told her as she attempted to recompose herself. Maya took a step back and looked again around the room before she looked back at Victoria to carry on with her questions. "You seem very nice, so please allow me to be very forward, 'cause this is not normal whatsoever. Did I die? Is this hell? What happened to my law firm? Did Dina take over? 'Cause we were in the process of helping a lot of good people in need." Victoria raised her hand palm forward and taking the hint, Maya fell silent and could not but notice the smile spreading across Victoria's face as she spoke. "You are very much alive, child, and can feel your pulse to confirm that. You are however in hell, but only as a guest, so no need to worry. As for your law firm, the work carries on, but your second-in-command, Dina, is quite worried 'cause you have been missing for 3 days thus far. After dinner, we will send you back to Tel Aviv, so please hurry up and pick your dress, 'cause your host is already waiting." It took a minute before Victoria noticed the blank look on Maya's face, and another minute after that before she spoke again. "I'm in hell?" Maya asked as the color drained from her face. "As just a guest, my dear, you are not a resident," Victoria hurried to reassure Maya. "Now we are already late, so please choose a dress that you like," Victoria said, pointing to the dresses on the bed. Maya decided to try and go with the flow as she seemed to have no other choices at that time. As she nervously looked over her choices, she asked Victoria, "Who are we going to dine with?" but did not expect the answer she had received in her lifetime. "Why, the king and queen, of course, along with your rescuer the prince," said Victoria, as if it was no big deal. Maya stopped moving and slowly looked back at Victoria while what little color she still had finally drained from her face. She felt the room start spinning around her as she sank deeper into the bed, trying to grasp her impossible situation. Victoria grabbed Maya's hand and spoke a few words in a language that Maya did not understand. As Victoria finished speaking, Maya felt a surge of energy run through her and the room stopped spinning. "What was that?" Maya asked Victoria, feeling like she was on speed or some other drug. "Just a bit of me with you now, my dear," the demon tried to calm her, but after seeing Maya clench her teeth, Victoria realized it was a bit too much. Victoria took Maya's hand again and spoke further in the same strange language, and immediately Maya felt her body relax again. Once she felt herself stabilizing, Maya pulled away from Victoria in fear while asking her, "What are you?" Victoria was saddened by this, and it showed as she pulled away from the bed and stood subdued with her head hanging low. "I apologize for my actions, miss," she said with a voice that sounded far away. "I come from a time long since past, when women had no equality to men. So faced with my honor and life on the line, I stood my ground. Once I had a taste of actual justice, I couldn't stop and visited every abusive man that I could find. Wherever a beaten woman stood crying, I was there to cleanse her pain. Once I was caught, I refused to repent my so-called crimes, and shortly after wore the necktie. I arrived in hell ready for my punishment, but was unexpectedly rescued by the young prince. He reached out his hand to me and said that I had been punished enough in my life and that no one would ever hurt me again. He brought me here and asked to take care of his parents, and I have been here ever since, running the castle for them." The dark liquid tears were flowing down the demon's face again, and Maya knew instantly that she had overreacted. She pulled the silken sheets around her, slowly got off the bed and moved towards Victoria. She had a standing rule in her modern-day law firm that every abused woman who needed their help would get it pro bono. "So are you a demon?" Maya asked Victoria in a soft voice. Victoria looked up at Maya and answered her by pulling out and spreading her black wings for her to see. The demon bowed her head again to Maya and repeated, "I am at her service." Maya closed the distance to Victoria quickly while losing the blanket in the process, and hugged her as hard as she could while she apologized for her reaction. "I'm so sorry." Victoria was taken aback by this action and quickly folded her wings, before embracing Maya's now naked body. "I need you to do me 2 favors," Maya asked Victoria. Anything you wish, my dear, Victoria expectedly answered, a bit unsure, not knowing what she would be asked to do. Still holding on, Maya looked at the demon and first asked her to tell her about the royal family, as she was not going in unprepared. Victoria remembered solicitors from her time with humans, and how at her trial she was interviewed before her day at court, so that made sense. And the second favor? Victoria looked at Maya, preparing herself for the unknown. At this, Maya smiled wide, pulled on Victoria's Victorian dress, and said, "This has got to go. I need you to magic some dresses your size in the same style that you chose for me, and pick one for yourself that is not black. You will be wearing it to this dinner." The demoness stared at Maya, trying to determine if this was an attempt at humor, and upon realizing it wasn't, began to laugh. Like everything else that day, it wasn't normal, as it sounded like multiple psychotic waves of laughter going on at the same time. Maya had to quickly remind herself that Victoria was no longer human, and this was normal here. Victoria pulled Maya closer for a tight squeeze, before she finally pulled away and began to detail what she knew of the royal family, as they both chose their outfits for the dinner they were already quite late for.